playing in the Negro League, the guys heard my voice and they said, "Man, you make a lot of money singing. You sing pretty good."
He didn't take any classes in this. There weren't any. He was like, I'm going to be a country singer and I belong here.
No person of color had ever done what he was doing.
Charley Pride learned the language of country music.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of what may be the first podcast for the new documentary channel. Today, we have Barbara Hall with us. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thanks for putting up with all this little bit of craziness. But I guess that really is the way things go when you're having a documentary. You think you're set to do this and you're going to have this resource, and then nope, just doesn't happen.
Yeah, if you're talking resources, yeah, that's a whole other documentary, but just story. And I'm a bit old-fashioned, so I may have a plan for what I think the story is, but when I go out and start to work on a film and a story emerges, I go with it. So then yes, you're all over the map, but you have to try to figure out, how do I hone this in so that it's whatever your time is, 80 minutes or 90 minutes or sometimes 60 minutes. And those are the good problems to have. Not enough content, which has never been my problem. That would be a bad problem to have. So
yeah, and then in post-production, you've got the investors wanting a say and all that stuff.
Yeah. My dream gig, someone just gives me enough money to make a film and they don't have an opinion. That is my dream. But my dream has not come true yet. But I'm thinking it's going to happen soon.
I get that vibe from you.
Documentary filmmaking always takes a village, no matter what. So it's always a group of people, and it's always a group, always a village. But truthfully, I graduated from York University. I was a social worker in Toronto and sang in a band that wrote songs. Now, don't get too excited about that. My sister was married to a record producer, so I understood the business of music. I'm going somewhere with this. And then because we wrote songs, I understood publishing. So when my husband and I said, well, it was really his idea, let's just go see what life is like in Nashville. Let's just go check it out and live there. I said, okay, we'll live there for a couple of years. If we're not happy, we come home. And so I understood the music business, and I didn't get a green card right away. So I just started working for filmmakers and producers, clearing their music for their film and television. And that was how I started in film and TV. I'm a member of the Music Supervisors Guild. I love music, obviously. And so many of the stories that I've worked on over the years are music based. And I can tell you, they're all fully cleared, rights and clearances. I'm like a nerd. When I see a great film, I'm very thrilled with it. When all of the paperwork is done and signed off and fully executed and paid and everyone has approved, that's also a beautiful thing. So I'm kind of not your average filmmaker. Most director types, all they care about is what's on the screen and trying to make a beautiful project. I try not to get married to things that I know I can't use or can't afford. So I probably come at storytelling a little differently. And then somehow I got a gig to direct a film about the monkeys.
Just somehow.
Well, it was, yes. It was a little bit of begging and groveling probably, and a lot of selling of myself. And then the network submitted it for an Emmy, for a primetime Emmy, and it got nominated. So that was my realization that, okay, I don't really stink at this. I'm not that bad. Maybe this is my gift. Maybe this is my calling. So there you have it.
I recall something about, like, the monkeys actually wanted to become like a real touring band after that? Maybe I'm confusing two stories.
Well, they were definitely a manufactured band for the show, for the television show. So yes, I can tell you what you might want to know about the Monkees. Peter was a real musician, and Mike was a real musician. Davy was a theatrical type performer,
Mhm.
and Mickey was more of an actor. So he had to learn the drums to be on the show, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And they did, when they made their album on their own, and sadly it didn't do very well. They kind of broke up pretty quickly. But
Oh, that's
yeah,
unfortunate. If they
yeah,
would have stuck with it like you did.
who knows? Who
Mhm.
knows? Yep. Yeah, but it was whoever put those guys together, that was a really good combo, one of the early boy bands.
Yeah. I also read a story that I think it's Stephen Stills from Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young was supposed to get one of the positions on that show, but they didn't like his teeth.
That yeah, that's probably, there were a lot of musicians, local musicians in LA at the time who were trying out for that gig. Um, you know, who knows what was in the head of the decision makers, but yeah,
Mhm.
he didn't get picked. So
Yeah.
and obviously they made wise choices because, well, the show was a huge success and has had a very long life.
Mhm.
Um, so, and their music is still, now there was great songwriting behind their music. Neil Diamond and Brill Building wrote a lot of those songs. So, yeah, they were kind of a hit.
So you must have been just like your head exploding meeting all these people that, you kind of grew up with a little bit.
It was I have been so fortunate and I'm thankful every day. I just finished making a Brenda Lee film, and Keith Urban is a big fan of Brenda Lee and agreed to be filmed. And he grew up listening to Brenda. He found out about Brenda by the Golden Earring song that has her name in it from the 80s. When really she was a big hit, an early rock and roller in the 50s and 60s. So I've just been so fortunate
Mhm.
that yes, I've met a lot of interesting people along the way. Been able to enjoy a great career, and I'm really grateful. I'm not sure why I have had such good luck, but I have. So I am thankful and do my best to pay it forward.
So, so before we get to your other documentaries that are going to be affiliated with the documentary channel or whatever it's going to be called this iteration, can we replay the conversation you and I had about Brenda Lee when you said, I have a cousin named Brenda Lee. I knew you weren't talking about her. So, but I don't know who she is. And you were a little bit shocked.
Well, rocking around the Christmas tree last year. So Miss Brenda Lee just turned 80, and rocking around the Christmas tree, probably a song in most households, and has been at number two the last couple of decades. Always, the last since Mariah Carey came out with her Christmas song. Last year, Brenda Lee, at 79 years old, bumped off Mariah from the number one position and finally got her number one with Rocking Around the Christmas Tree. It's kind of a staple in most households that celebrate Christmas or that listen to the radio at Christmas time.
Mhm.
Um, so, yeah, it's a Christmas classic. And she also had several other classics, and she just had this huge career. She started off as one of the first solo female artists in rock and roll.
Mhm.
She toured with Elvis. The Beatles say that they were influenced by her. She's inducted as a solo female into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in early 2000. Not a whole lot of solo women inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Then she kind of becomes a little bit rockabilly Billy and embraces whatever that genre is. She kind of becomes the face of it. And then when she was about 38, 40 years old, she decided to record a song that was written by Chris Christopherson,
Another
who was
loser.
really, yeah, right, who's on the of country music, not, not hardcore country as it was known in the 80s. And she goes in and records it the same way she records all her other stuff, same musician, same style, everything. And it just flies up the country charts. So then all of a sudden she's a country artist. Never set out to be a country artist, but all of a sudden now she's a country artist. So when she's inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame because of her success, she's like 100 million albums. So yeah, she is a force to be reckoned with. All 4'11" of her, and her hair is always, she has the Nashville big hair because she's trying to gain a few inches because she's so little. But yeah, she is a spitfire, and it was such a joy to work with her, such an honor.
So when the song went to #1 last year, was that her first actual #1, or had she?
No, but it was the first time Rocking Around the Christmas Tree was #1, and it had been out since like 1952 or something like that.
I can't imagine too many 79-year-olds have a #1 on the charts.
Nope, that's for sure. So yeah, Google her.
I'm definitely going to.
Yes. And such a cool voice, and she's unusual in so many ways and so unique. So yeah, I think you'll enjoy her style and her music.
So would you say she's sort of like a Dolly Parton 2.0?
Oh, sure. Because she came out long before Dolly, obviously. And yeah, I bet you Dolly would say, I followed the Brenda playbook. Brenda had a really unique situation in that she came to Nashville. She was dirt poor. Family was like dirt poor. Father had died when she was a kid. Mom, there's a couple of siblings. Mom had to work really, really hard. Brenda just loved to sing. And she would go and just sing at anyone who would listen. And if they threw a few quarters her way, that's when she realized, maybe I could make some money doing this. And one thing led to another. She tried out for every talent contest, banging the door at the radio stations, the way things kind of happened in the 50s, where you kind of had to make it happen. So I think, and Dolly had a very similar story, dirt poor, also like from, East Tennessee, and just said, I'm going to go to Nashville and I'm not going to stop until they listen to me. That's exactly what both those women did.
That's amazing, amazing story.